Marcus Webb had been working at the construction site in South Philadelphia for 3 months when Derek Crane decided he was an easy target. The morning started like any other. Marcus arrived at 6:15, parked his truck in the gravel lot, and grabbed his lunch bag from the passenger seat. He was 32 years old, quiet, methodical in his work. The other men on the crew had learned quickly that Marcus kept to himself. He ate lunch alone. He never joined them at the bar after shifts. When they asked him questions, he answered politely but briefly, never offering more than necessary. Derek Crane was different. He had been on the crew for 5 years, knew everyone, and had built a reputation as someone who commanded respect through intimidation. At 6'3" and 240 pounds, Derek was physically imposing. He had a thick beard, arms covered in faded tattoos, and a voice that carried across the entire job site. Most men either feared him or pretended to be his friend. Marcus was neither. The friction started small. Derek would make comments when Marcus walked by. Nothing direct at first, just loud observations meant to be overheard. Some guys think they're too good to drink with the crew. Must be nice living in your own world. Marcus never responded. He would continue walking, heading to whatever task awaited him. His face remained neutral, his pace unchanged. This lack of reaction seemed to irritate Derek more than any confrontation would have. By the second month, Derek escalated. He began positioning himself in Marcus's path, forcing him to walk around. He would lean against Marcus's toolbox, arms crossed, smirking as Marcus approached. When Marcus asked him to move, Derek would take his time, making a show of stretching before stepping aside. The other workers noticed, but said nothing. Some felt uncomfortable with Derek's behavior, but confronting him meant becoming his next target. It was easier to look away, to focus on their own work, and pretend they did not see what was happening. Marcus continued showing up every day. He arrived on time, did his work with precision, and left when his shift ended. He never complained to the foreman. He never raised his voice. To the casual observer, it seemed like Derek's harassment had no effect on him whatsoever. This infuriated Derek. On a Tuesday morning in late September, the temperature had dropped overnight, and a cold wind swept through the site. The crew was framing the 3rd floor of what would eventually become a medical office building. Marcus was working on the east side, measuring and marking studs when Derek appeared beside him. "You know what your problem is," Derek said, loud enough for several nearby workers to hear. Marcus continued marking his measurements. He did not look up. "Your problem is you think you're better than everyone here," Derek continued. "You think because you don't talk to us, because you keep your head down, that makes you special somehow." Marcus finished his mark, straightened, and reached for his circular saw. Derek stepped closer, deliberately invading his space. "I'm talking to you." Marcus met his eyes for the first time. His expression was completely calm. "I heard you," Marcus said quietly. "Then answer me." "There's nothing to answer." "I'm here to work." Derek laughed, a harsh sound that made several workers glance over. "Here to work. Right. You're here to act like you're too good for the rest of us." Marcus picked up a 2x6 and positioned it on his sawhorses. Derek grabbed the other end before he could secure it. "Let go," Marcus said. "Make me." The job site had gone quiet. Everyone within earshot had stopped working, watching to see what would happen. This was the confrontation Derek had been building toward for months, and everyone knew it. Marcus released his end of the board and stepped back. "I'm not doing this." "Of course you're not," Derek said, tossing the board aside. It clattered loudly against the plywood subfloor. "Because you're soft. You're nothing. You come here every day pretending to be invisible, hoping no one notices what a coward you are." Marcus turned and walked toward the ladder that led down to the 2nd floor. Derek followed. "Where do you think you're going? We're not done." "I'm going to talk to Ray," Marcus said, referring to the foreman. Derek grabbed his shoulder and spun him around. The movement was aggressive, meant to provoke. Marcus's body tensed, but he forced himself to relax. His hands remained at his sides. "You're going to run and tell the boss?" Derek's face was inches from Marcus's now. "That's exactly what I expected from someone like you. Let go of me." "Or what?" Derek shoved him backward. Marcus stumbled but kept his balance. "What are you going to do about it? Fight me?" "You don't have the guts." Marcus took a slow breath. His jaw was tight, but his voice remained steady. "I don't want any trouble." "Too bad. You've got it." Derek shoved him again, harder this time. One of the younger workers, a kid named Tommy who had only been on the crew for a few weeks, stepped forward hesitantly. "Hey, Derek, maybe just—" "Shut up, Tommy," Derek snapped without looking at him. "This doesn't concern you." Tommy retreated immediately, and no one else moved to intervene. Derek turned his attention back to Marcus. "You know what I think? I think you're hiding something. Nobody is this much of a ghost unless they've got a reason. What is it? You got a record? You run away from something?" Marcus said nothing. "That's it, isn't it?" Derek was enjoying himself now, feeding off the attention of the watching crew. "You're running from something. Maybe you owe someone money. Maybe you did something you're ashamed of. Whatever it is, you came here thinking you could disappear, thinking nobody would notice you." He poked Marcus hard in the chest. "But I noticed you, and I'm not letting you hide anymore." Marcus looked at the finger pressed against his sternum, then back up at Derek's face. When he spoke, his voice was so quiet that the workers had to strain to hear him. "You need to step back," Derek laughed. "Do you think you're a hero?" he sneered, poking him again. "Is that what this is? You think if you stay calm and collected, you're somehow the bigger man? You think that makes you tough?" Marcus did not respond. His eyes had changed, though. Something in them had shifted, grown distant and cold in a way that made the smile on Derek's face falter for just a fraction of a second. But Derek had gone too far to back down now. He had an audience. He had spent months building to this moment, and retreating would make him look weak. "You're pathetic," Derek said, shoving Marcus once more. This time Marcus caught his wrists. The movement was so fast that Derek barely registered it. One moment his hands were against Marcus's chest, and the next they were immobilized, held in a grip that felt like iron. Derek tried to pull away and could not. He tried to twist free and found that Marcus's hold did not budge even slightly. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Derek's face. "Let go," Derek said, his voice losing some of its confidence. Marcus held his gaze. "You wanted this. You've been pushing for it since the day I got here, so let me be very clear with you. I don't want to fight you. I don't want to hurt you. I came here to work, to earn a living, and to be left alone. That's all I've ever wanted." "Then let go of me," Derek said, trying again to wrench his hands free. He could not. "I will. But first, you need to understand something. I'm not hiding because I'm afraid of you. I'm not quiet because I'm weak. I'm here, doing this job, trying to live a normal life, because that's what I chose after everything else." Derek's eyes narrowed. "After what?" Marcus released him and stepped back. Derek rubbed his wrists, staring at Marcus with new wariness. "It doesn't matter," Marcus said. "What matters is that you leave me alone from now on. I won't ask again." The entire crew was watching in silence. The dynamic had shifted in a way no one could quite articulate, but everyone felt it. Derek looked around at the watching faces, then back at Marcus. He could not let it end like this. Not with everyone watching. Not after months of building his dominance. "You think you're tough because you can grab someone's wrists?" Derek said, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow. "That doesn't prove anything. You're still just a coward who won't fight." Marcus closed his eyes briefly, as if pained by what was about to happen. "Derek, walk away. Make me." Marcus opened his eyes. "All right." What happened next occurred so quickly that most of the crew could not follow the individual movements. Derek swung at Marcus's face, a wide haymaker driven by anger and embarrassment. Marcus shifted his weight slightly, and the fist passed harmlessly past his ear. Before Derek could recover, Marcus stepped inside his guard and delivered a single palm strike to Derek's solar plexus. The sound was a dull thump, nothing dramatic, but Derek's entire body seized. The air exploded from his lungs in a strangled gasp, and his knees buckled. He collapsed onto the plywood floor, clutching his stomach, unable to breathe. Marcus stood over him, completely calm, not even breathing hard. "Stay down," Marcus said quietly. Derek tried to suck in air. His face was turning red, then purple. Panic filled his eyes as his body refused to obey him, his diaphragm paralyzed by the precisely delivered strike. Several workers rushed forward, not to attack Marcus, but to help Derek, who was now on his hands and knees, making desperate, choking sounds. Ray the foreman came running up the ladder, having heard the commotion from below. "What the hell happened?" Ray shouted. No one answered immediately. They were all staring at Marcus, who had already turned away and was picking up the 2x6 that Derek had thrown aside earlier. Tommy found his voice first. Derek attacked him. Marcus was just defending himself. Ray looked at Derek, who was now sitting against a wall stud, still struggling to catch his breath. Then he looked at Marcus, who was calmly measuring the board as if nothing had happened. "Marcus," Ray said. Marcus looked up. "My office, now." Marcus nodded, set down his tape measure, and followed Ray down the ladder. The crew watched them go in stunned silence. Derek remained on the floor, humiliated and gasping, unable to meet anyone's eyes. In Ray's trailer, which served as the job site office, Marcus stood with his hands clasped in front of him while Ray sat behind his desk. Ray was 58 years old, had been in construction for 40 years, and had seen every kind of workplace conflict imaginable. But something about the way Marcus carried himself, the eerie calm he had displayed even while defending himself, told Ray this was different. "I'm going to have to let you go," Ray said. "You know that." Marcus nodded. "I understand. Derek's probably going to press charges. He might even sue." "He won't." Ray raised an eyebrow. "What makes you so sure?" "Because when he catches his breath and thinks about what happened, he'll realize he doesn't want anyone looking too closely at this. He attacked me. Everyone saw it. I defended myself with minimal force. If this goes to court, or even to HR, he loses his job too, and his reputation is finished." Ray studied him for a long moment. "You've thought this through." "I've been thinking about it for 3 months. I knew it would eventually come to this." "Then why didn't you come to me earlier? Why let it escalate?" Marcus was quiet for a moment before answering. "Because I hoped he would get bored and move on, and because I didn't want to cause problems." "Well, you've got problems now." Ray leaned back in his chair. "You want to tell me where you learned to do that? That wasn't some street fighting move. That was training." Marcus met his eyes but said nothing. Ray sighed. "All right, I'm not going to push. But I need you to understand something. Derek's been a pain in my ass for years, but he's never actually hurt anyone. You, on the other hand, just put him down in about 2 seconds flat without breaking a sweat. That tells me you're dangerous, Marcus. Really dangerous. And I can't have that on my job site, no matter how much he deserved it." "I know," Marcus said. "I'm sorry it came to this." "Are you?" Ray asked. "Because from where I was standing, it looked like you knew exactly what was going to happen and exactly how to handle it when it did." Marcus did not respond. Ray pulled out a company check and began filling it out. "I'm paying you through the end of the week, and I'm not putting any of this in your file. As far as the paperwork is concerned, this was a mutual separation. You wanted to pursue other opportunities. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just tell me one thing." Ray looked up from the check. "Whatever you were before you came here, whatever you did that made you this good at hurting people, are you done with it? Or is this going to follow you wherever you go?" Marcus took a slow breath. "I'm trying to be done with it." "Trying isn't the same as done." "No, it's not." Ray handed him the check. "Then I hope you figure it out, Marcus, because someone with your skills who isn't sure what he wants to be is a dangerous thing." Marcus took the check and walked toward the door. He paused with his hand on the handle. "Ray?" "Yeah?" "Derek will be fine. I didn't cause any permanent damage. He'll be sore for a day or two, but that's all." Ray nodded slowly. "You knew exactly how hard to hit him." "Yes, that's what scares me." Marcus left without another word. By the time he reached his truck, word had spread through the entire job site about what had happened. Workers stood in small clusters, watching as Marcus walked across the gravel lot. No one approached him. No one said anything. They simply watched, reassessing everything they thought they knew about the quiet man who had worked beside them for 3 months. Marcus climbed into his truck, started the engine, and drove away. He did not go home immediately. Instead, he drove to the waterfront, parked near Penn's Landing, and sat staring at the Delaware River. The water was grey under the overcast sky, and the wind rocked his truck gently. He had tried so hard to leave it all behind. After everything that had happened in Kandahar, after the years of missions that blurred together into an endless cycle of violence and survival, he had wanted nothing more than to disappear into normalcy, to be just another face in the crowd, another worker on a job site, someone whose greatest concern was whether the weather would hold long enough to finish framing. But Derek had not let him. Derek had pushed and prodded and provoked until Marcus had no choice but to reveal a fragment of what he really was. And now it was over. Another job lost. Another attempt at normal life disrupted. Marcus pulled out his phone and stared at the screen for a long moment before finally dialing. "Webb," said the voice on the other end. It was clipped, professional, immediately recognizable. "Sir, it's Marcus." There was a pause. "I was wondering when I'd hear from you again. It's been, what, 8 months?" 9. How's civilian life treating you? Marcus looked out at the river. I just got fired from my third job. Another pause. Longer this time. What happened? Same thing that always happens. I try to keep my head down, someone decides I'm an easy target, and it escalates until I have to defend myself. Then everyone figures out I'm not what I appeared to be, and I have to leave. You didn't hurt anyone badly, did you? No, sir, controlled strike, he'll be fine. Good, that's good, Marcus. The voice softened slightly. You know you could come back any time. The unit could use someone with your experience. I can't do that anymore, sir, that's why I left. I know, and I respect that choice. But you need to understand something, Marcus. What you learned, what you became during your time with us, it doesn't just go away. It's part of you now. Fighting it, trying to pretend you're someone you're not, that's only going to make things harder. Marcus closed his eyes. Then what am I supposed to do? You're supposed to accept who you are and find a way to live with it. Maybe that means finding work that uses your skills in a productive way. Security consulting, personal protection, training. There are options that don't involve going back into combat, but also don't require you to pretend you're just another construction worker. I wanted to be normal. I know you did. But normal left you the day you signed up. You can't unsee what you've seen or unlearn what you know. The question isn't whether you can go back. It's how you move forward. Marcus sat in silence, watching a container ship make its way slowly up the river. Think about what I said, the voice continued. And Marcus, be careful out there. The world isn't always kind to men like us when we try to reintegrate. People sense something different, something dangerous, and they react to it. Sometimes that reaction is fear. Sometimes it's aggression. Either way, it makes life complicated. Yes, sir. Take care of yourself. The line went dead. Marcus sat in his truck for another hour before finally starting the engine and heading home. His apartment was in a quiet neighborhood in South Philadelphia, a modest one-bedroom on the second floor of a converted brownstone. He had chosen it specifically because it was unremarkable, the kind of place where no one paid attention to their neighbors. Inside, the space was sparse. A couch and a television in the living room, a small dining table with one chair, a bed, a dresser, and nothing on the walls. There were no photos, no decorations, nothing that revealed anything about who Marcus was or where he had been. It looked like a hotel room occupied by someone passing through, not a home. Marcus dropped his keys on the counter and opened the refrigerator. He pulled out a beer, twisted off the cap and drank half of it while standing in the kitchen. Then he walked to the living room and sat on the couch, staring at nothing. His phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. This is Tommy from the crew. I got your number from the timesheet. I just wanted to say that what Derek did was wrong, and you had every right to defend yourself. Also wanted to say that was the most insane thing I've ever seen. You okay? Marcus stared at the message for a moment before typing a reply. I'm fine. Thanks for checking. What are you going to do now? Marcus set the phone down without answering. He did not know what he was going to do. He had saved enough money to last a few months without work, but eventually he would need another job. And when he found one, the cycle would likely repeat itself. Someone would decide to test him. He would try to avoid conflict. Eventually it would become unavoidable. And once again he would have to reveal himself, unless he took his former commander's advice and stopped trying to be something he was not. The problem was that Marcus was not entirely sure what he was anymore. He had been a soldier. He had been exceptional at it, rising through the ranks to become part of an elite unit that operated in the darkest corners of the world. He had skills that most people could not imagine, had done things that would haunt him for the rest of his life. And when it was finally over, when his contract ended and he was free to leave, he had believed that he could simply walk away from all of it. He had been wrong. 3 days passed. Marcus spent them in his apartment, barely leaving except to buy groceries. He ran every morning before dawn, pushing himself until his lungs burned and his legs trembled, trying to exhaust the restless energy that had been building since the incident with Derek. The physical exertion helped temporarily, but the underlying tension remained. On the 4th day, his phone rang. Unknown number. Marcus considered letting it go to voicemail, but answered. Is this Marcus Webb? The voice was male, older, with a slight rasp that suggested years of smoking. Who's asking? My name is Frank Russo. I own a security company here in Philadelphia. Ray Morrison gave me your number, said you might be looking for work. Marcus sat up straighter. Ray called you? He did. Told me an interesting story about a guy on his crew who handled himself with professional precision when confronted. Said you put down a man twice your size without breaking a sweat or causing serious injury. That kind of control interests me. I'm not looking to hurt people for money. Frank laughed, a dry sound. Good, because that's not what I'm offering. I run executive protection, security consulting, risk assessment. Legitimate work for legitimate clients. But I need people who know what they're doing. People with real training, not just gym muscles and an attitude. What makes you think I have real training? Because Ray's been in construction for 40 years, and he said he's never seen anyone move the way you moved. Said it looked military. Special operations, if he had to guess. He also said you've been trying real hard to blend in and live a normal life, and it's not working out. Marcus was silent. Look, Frank continued, I'm not asking you to tell me your life story. I don't need to know the details. What I need is someone who can keep high-value clients safe without drawing attention. Someone who can assess threats before they materialize, and someone who won't panic when things go sideways. Ray thinks you might be that person. Am I wrong? Marcus considered hanging up, considered telling Frank he had the wrong guy. But his former commander's words echoed in his mind. Stop trying to pretend you're someone you're not. What kind of clients? CEOs, executives, occasionally politicians, people who need protection but don't want it to be obvious. You'd blend into their routine, stay close enough to react if necessary, far enough back that you're not intrusive. Sometimes it's just driving them around. Sometimes it's accompanying them to events. Mostly it's being aware of everything happening around them at all times. How did you know I'd be good at that? Because Ray said you spent 3 months on his job site, and nobody knew a damn thing about you except that you showed up on time and did your work. That's exactly the kind of invisible I need. Marcus walked to his window and looked down at the street below. A woman was walking her dog. 2 kids were riding bikes. Normal people living normal lives, something that felt increasingly out of reach for him. When would you want to meet? How about today? Say 2 o'clock at my office. I'll text you the address. All right. And Marcus? Dress like you're going to a professional interview. My clients expect a certain image. The line went dead. 2 hours later, Marcus stood outside a modern glass building in Center City. Frank Russo's office was on the 12th floor. The lobby was sleek and minimalist, all polished stone and chrome. A receptionist directed him to the elevator. Frank's office had a view of the city skyline. The man himself was in his early 60s, grey hair cut short, wearing an expensive suit that fit perfectly. He had the bearing of someone who had spent time in uniform, and his handshake was firm. Marcus Webb. Thanks for coming. Frank gestured to a chair. Coffee? Water? I'm fine. Frank sat behind his desk and pulled out a thin folder. I did some homework after Ray called me, made a few calls to people I know, got some interesting responses. Marcus remained still, his expression neutral. Nobody would tell me specifics, Frank continued. But the fact that people I trust vouched for your character without being willing to discuss your background tells me everything I need to know. You did classified work, probably overseas, probably in places most people can't pronounce, and now you're trying to figure out what comes next. Is there a question in there? Frank smiled. Direct. I like that. Here's my question. Can you do this job without your past becoming a problem? Because I need someone reliable. Someone who won't disappear in the middle of a contract because something from their old life catches up to them. My past isn't chasing me. I'm just trying to move forward from it. Fair enough. Frank opened the folder. I've got a client who needs someone starting next week. Software executive traveling to San Francisco for a conference. Lots of high-profile people. Lots of potential security concerns. He wants someone capable, but not obvious. Someone who looks like they could be an assistant or a colleague, not a bodyguard. Think you can handle that? What's the threat level? Low to moderate. He's been getting some aggressive emails from a former business partner who feels they were cheated. Probably nothing, but he wants peace of mind. Your job would be to stay close, be aware, and intervene only if absolutely necessary. Marcus thought about it. It was exactly the kind of work his commander had suggested. Using his skills without returning to combat, protecting people instead of hunting them. What's the pay? Frank named a figure that was 3 times what Marcus had been making in construction. That's per week, Frank added, plus expenses. And if things go well, this client has friends who will want the same service. You could be looking at steady work. What do you need from me? Background check, which I'm guessing will come back clean since you managed to get a job with Ray without any flags. Standard contract, non-disclosure agreement. And I need to know you can commit to this without reservation. Once you start, you can't just walk away because things get uncomfortable. Marcus met his eyes. I complete what I start. Good. Frank slid the folder across the desk. Read through this. If you're interested, sign the contract and bring it back tomorrow. We'll get you set up with credentials, briefing materials, everything you need. Marcus picked up the folder but didn't open it. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why are you doing this? You don't know me. You're taking Ray's word and some vague background checks. Why take the risk? Frank leaned back in his chair. Because 20 years ago, I was exactly where you are now. I spent 12 years in the Marines, did 3 tours, came home and tried to work normal jobs. Hated every minute of it. Felt like I was suffocating. Then someone gave me a chance to use what I learned in a way that mattered without having to go back into combat. Changed my life. So when Ray called me and told me about you, I figured maybe I could do the same for someone else. Marcus nodded slowly. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Do good work, and we'll call it even. Marcus left the building and walked several blocks before finding a quiet park bench. He opened the folder and read through the contract carefully. It was straightforward. Standard employment terms, confidentiality clauses, liability waivers. Nothing concerning. He pulled out his phone and called Ray. Marcus, Ray answered. How'd it go? You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Look, I fired you because I had to, not because I wanted to. And after you left, I started thinking about what a waste it was. You're good at what you do, Marcus. Too good to be swinging hammers. Frank's a straight shooter. If he offered you work, you should take it. Why didn't you tell me you were calling him? Because if I had, you would have told me not to. You would have said you could handle it yourself, that you didn't need help. But here's the thing. Everybody needs help sometimes, even guys like you. Marcus watched a jogger pass by, earbuds in, completely unaware of their surroundings. I appreciate it, Ray. Just do me a favor. Whatever happened before you came to my job site, whatever made you the way you are, don't run from it anymore. Accept it. Use it. Maybe you'll find some peace that way. Maybe. And Marcus, if Frank ever needs references, tell him to call me. I'll vouch for you. That evening, Marcus signed the contract. The next morning, he returned it to Frank's office. By afternoon, he had credentials, a briefing on his first client, and a start date. For the first time in months, he felt like he might actually have a path forward. The week passed quickly. Marcus prepared for the assignment with the same methodical approach he had once used for missions. He researched the client, studied the conference venue, mapped out routes and exits, identified potential security concerns. By the time he met Richard Chen, the software executive, Marcus knew more about the man's life than Chen probably remembered himself. Their first meeting was in Chen's office downtown. Chen was in his mid-40s, wearing designer jeans and a casual button-down shirt. He looked more like a college professor than a tech executive, and his handshake was tentative. So you're my security detail? Chen said, looking Marcus up and down. That's right. You don't look like a bodyguard. That's the idea. Chen laughed nervously. Frank said you'd be discreet. I just didn't expect someone so normal-looking. No offense. None taken. That's what makes me effective. They spent an hour going over the schedule, discussing Chen's concerns, establishing protocols. Marcus learned that the threatening emails had been increasing in frequency and aggression. The former business partner, a man named Douglas Matthews, blamed Chen for a failed venture that had cost him millions. The threats were vague enough to avoid legal action, but specific enough to cause concern. Do you think he'll actually try something? Chen asked. Probably not. Most people who make threats don't follow through, but that's why I'm here, to make sure that probably not doesn't become a problem. The trip to San Francisco went smoothly. Marcus accompanied Chen on the flight, sitting 2 rows behind him, scanning other passengers, monitoring behavior. At the hotel, he checked Chen's room before allowing him to enter, then took a room directly next door with an adjoining door. The conference itself was held in a massive convention center. Thousands of attendees, dozens of presentations, countless opportunities for someone to get close to Chen if they wanted to. Marcus stayed within 10 feet at all times, positioning himself to maintain visual contact while appearing to be just another conference attendee. On the second day, Marcus spotted him. Douglas Matthews was standing near the back of a presentation hall, watching Chen speak on stage. He was in his early 50s, wearing an expensive suit that hung loosely on his frame, suggesting recent weight loss. His eyes were fixed on Chen with an intensity that made Marcus's instincts flare. Marcus moved closer, keeping Matthews in his peripheral vision while maintaining his position near Chen. When the presentation ended and Chen stepped off stage, Matthews began moving toward him through the crowd. Marcus intercepted him smoothly, stepping into his path as if by accident. "Excuse me," Marcus said politely. Matthews tried to move around him. Marcus shifted, blocking him again without being obvious about it. "I need to speak with Richard," Matthews said, irritation creeping into his voice. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Chen has another commitment. Perhaps you could schedule a meeting through his office." Matthews' eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" "I'm with Mr. Chen's team. If you'd like to leave your contact information, I can make sure he receives it." "I don't need to leave information. I know Richard. We were partners." "I understand. But this isn't the appropriate venue for that conversation." Marcus could see Chen in his peripheral vision, being led away by conference staff toward a meeting room. Matthews saw it too and tried to push past Marcus. This time, Marcus didn't move aside. He simply stood his ground, and Matthews found himself unable to get through without causing a scene. "Get out of my way," Matthews said, his voice rising. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to step back and calm down." Security personnel were already moving toward them, alerted by Matthews's raised voice. Marcus had positioned them perfectly, creating a situation where Matthews had no choice but to either retreat or be escorted out by security. Matthews seemed to realize this. His face flushed with anger, but he took a step back. "Tell Richard he can't avoid me forever," Matthews said. "He owes me, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows what he did." "I'll pass along your message," Marcus said evenly. Matthews stared at him for a long moment before turning and walking away. Security followed him at a discreet distance, making sure he left the building. Later that evening in Chen's hotel suite, the executive poured himself a scotch with shaking hands. "That was him, wasn't it? Douglas?" "Yes. What would have happened if you hadn't been there?" Marcus considered the question. "Hard to say, probably nothing physical. But he would have confronted you publicly, made a scene, potentially damaged your reputation. That seems to be his goal." Chen drank half his scotch in one swallow. "I didn't steal from him. The venture failed. That happens in business. But Douglas can't accept it. He needs someone to blame, and I'm the easiest target. Has he tried to contact you directly before today?" "Emails, texts. He showed up at my office once, but security wouldn't let him in. I thought coming here, being across the country, I'd be safe from him for a few days." "He's escalating," Marcus said. "The fact that he flew here to confront you means he's becoming more desperate. You should consider a restraining order. My lawyers have been saying the same thing. I just hate the idea of making this even more public. It's already public. He made sure of that today. Better to get legal protection now before he does something you can't easily resolve." Chen nodded slowly. "You're right. I'll call them when we get back to Philadelphia. Thank you, Marcus, for handling that. For keeping me safe. That's the job." The rest of the conference passed without incident. Douglas Matthews did not return, though Marcus remained vigilant. When they flew back to Philadelphia 3 days later, Chen seemed more relaxed, confident that the immediate threat had passed. Frank Russo called Marcus the day after they returned. "Chen's already recommended you to 2 of his associates, said you handled a situation with his former partner perfectly. Didn't escalate, didn't make a scene, just quietly removed the threat. Matthews wasn't really a threat, just angry and desperate. Still, that's exactly the kind of work I need. Low profile, high effectiveness. I've got 3 more clients who want to meet you. You interested?" Marcus looked around his sparse apartment. For the first time since leaving the service, he felt like he had found something that fit, something that used who he was without requiring him to become something else. "Yeah, I'm interested." Over the next 6 months, Marcus built a reputation in Frank's company. He worked with corporate executives, venture capitalists, and occasionally visiting diplomats. Every assignment was different, but the core principle remained the same. Stay invisible until you can't be, then handle the situation with minimal force and maximum efficiency. The work suited him. It gave him purpose without the moral weight of his previous life. He was protecting people, not hunting them. Preventing violence rather than executing it. And slowly, the restlessness that had plagued him since leaving the service began to ease. He moved to a better apartment, bought new furniture, even went on a few dates. Life started to feel manageable, normal almost. Then Derek Crane walked into his life again. It was a Wednesday evening in March. Marcus had finished a 4-day assignment with a pharmaceutical executive and was having dinner alone at a small Italian restaurant in South Philadelphia. He was halfway through his meal when he noticed the commotion at the bar. A man was arguing with the bartender, his voice loud and aggressive. Other patrons were glancing over nervously. Marcus looked up from his pasta and recognized him immediately. Derek had lost weight. His face was thinner, his eyes sunken. The swagger Marcus remembered from the construction site was gone, replaced by something more desperate and volatile. He was clearly drunk, gesturing wildly as he shouted at the bartender about his bill. Marcus considered leaving. This wasn't his problem. Derek wasn't his responsibility. But as he watched Derek grab the bartender's wrist across the bar, his grip tight enough to make the younger man wince, Marcus stood and walked to the bar. "Let him go, Derek." Derek turned, his eyes unfocused. It took him a moment to recognize Marcus, and when he did, his expression twisted into something between rage and humiliation. "You," Derek said, releasing the bartender. "You ruined my life. I defended myself. You attacked me. You humiliated me in front of everyone. Ray fired me 2 weeks after you left. Said the crew wouldn't work with me anymore after what happened. I lost everything because of you." Marcus could smell the alcohol on his breath from 3 feet away. "You lost your job because you spent years being a bully. What happened between us was just the final straw." "Shut up," Derek said, taking a step closer. "You don't know anything about me. You don't know what I've been through." The bartender had backed away and the manager was on the phone, likely calling the police. Other patrons were watching, some recording on their phones. Marcus remained calm, his hands visible at his sides. "Derek, you need to leave. Go home, sleep this off." "Why? So you can feel like the hero again? So you can act like you're better than me?" "I never said I was better than you." "You didn't have to say it. You showed everyone. You made me look weak, like I was nothing." Marcus took a slow breath. "You're drunk. You're angry. I understand that. But if you don't leave right now, you're going to get arrested." "Is that what you want?" Derek laughed bitterly. "What does it matter? I've got nothing left anyway. No job, no respect. My wife left me. My friends won't return my calls. All because of you." "No. All because of the choices you made. I didn't create this situation, Derek. You did. Years before I ever showed up on that job site." Derek's face flushed red. "Stop talking like you're so much smarter than me. Stop acting like you understand. Then help me understand. What do you want from me right now?" Derek stared at him, and for a moment his expression cracked, revealing something raw and broken underneath. "I want my life back. I want to not be the guy everyone remembers as the idiot who got knocked out by the quiet new guy. I want to matter again." Marcus felt unexpected sympathy. He recognized the desperation in Derek's voice, the sense of losing everything that defined you and not knowing how to rebuild. He had felt the same way after leaving the service. "Attacking people isn't going to give you that," Marcus said quietly. "Neither is getting drunk and starting fights in restaurants. If you want your life back, you have to build something new. Something better than what you had before. Easy for you to say. You've probably got everything figured out. I don't. I'm just trying to move forward one day at a time, same as everyone else." Derek's shoulders sagged. The fight seemed to drain out of him all at once, leaving only exhaustion. "I don't know how to do that. Start by leaving here before the police arrive. Go home, get some sleep. Tomorrow, try again." Derek looked at the door, then back at Marcus. "Why are you helping me? After everything I did to you? Because I know what it's like to lose who you thought you were, and I know how hard it is to figure out what comes next." For a moment, it seemed like Derek might actually listen. Then his eyes hardened again and he shook his head. "I don't need your pity," Derek said, "and I don't need your advice." He shoved past Marcus and stumbled toward the door. He made it 3 steps before tripping over his own feet and crashing into a table. Plates and glasses shattered on the floor. A woman screamed. Derek tried to stand, slipped in the spilled drinks, and went down hard. His head struck the edge of another table with a sickening crack. Marcus was beside him in an instant, checking his pulse, assessing the injury. Blood was pooling beneath Derek's head, and his eyes were unfocused. Concussion, possibly worse. "Call an ambulance," Marcus said to the bartender, his voice sharp and commanding. "Now." The bartender fumbled for his phone. Other patrons crowded closer, trying to see what had happened. Marcus waved them back, creating space, maintaining Derek's airway. He pressed a clean napkin against the wound to slow the bleeding. Derek's eyes found his face. You again, he mumbled. Always you. Don't try to talk. Help is coming. I hate you, Derek said, but there was no force behind it, just tired resignation. I know. Derek's eyes closed. Marcus kept pressure on the wound, monitoring his breathing, checking his pulse every few seconds. The skills came back automatically, muscle memory from countless combat situations where he had performed field medicine under fire. The ambulance arrived within 6 minutes. Paramedics took over, stabilizing Derek's neck, loading him onto a stretcher. One of them glanced at Marcus's hands, still bloody from holding pressure on the wound. You did good work, the paramedic said. Probably saved him from losing a lot more blood. Marcus said nothing. He watched them load Derek into the ambulance and drive away, sirens wailing. Then he turned to find a police officer waiting to take his statement. The questioning took 20 minutes. Multiple witnesses confirmed that Derek had been the aggressor, that Marcus had tried to de-escalate, and that the fall had been Derek's own fault. The officer took Marcus's contact information and told him he was free to go. Marcus returned to his apartment, but couldn't sleep. He kept seeing Derek's face, the brokenness in his eyes, the way all his aggression had collapsed into desperation. It was too familiar, too close to how Marcus himself had felt in the months after leaving the service. The next morning he called the hospital. After being transferred 3 times, he finally reached someone who could tell him Derek's status. Concussion, 12 stitches, being held for observation. He would be released in a day or 2. Marcus hung up and stared at his phone. He should forget about Derek, move on with his own life. What happened to the man wasn't his responsibility, but he couldn't shake the feeling that walking away now would be abandoning someone who was drowning. He called Frank. I need a favor, Marcus said. Name it. There's someone I used to know. He's in a bad place. Lost his job, his family, everything. I think he needs help, but I'm probably the last person he wants it from. Frank was quiet for a moment. This is about that guy from Ray's crew, isn't it? The one you had the problem with. How did you know? Ray mentioned it when we talked. Said there was a guy who'd been causing you trouble, and you handled it professionally. Is he the one who needs help? Yeah. And you want to help him despite everything he did to you? I want to try. Frank sighed. You're a better man than most, Marcus. What do you need? Connections, resources. I don't know exactly. Just someone who can point him in the right direction if he's willing to go there. I know a few people. Veterans services, job placement programs, counseling. Let me make some calls. In the meantime, you focus on your own work. You've got a client meeting this afternoon. Marcus had forgotten about the meeting. He checked his schedule and saw that he was supposed to meet with a new client at 2 o'clock. High priority, Frank had noted in the appointment. The meeting was at a downtown law office. The client was a woman named Sarah Mitchell, a civil rights attorney who had been receiving death threats after representing several controversial cases. She was in her late 30s, sharp-featured with tired eyes that suggested she had not been sleeping well. Mr. Webb, she said, shaking his hand, thank you for meeting with me. Of course. Frank mentioned you've been having some security concerns. Sarah gestured for him to sit. Her office was modest but organized, walls covered with framed degrees and commendations. I've been working on a case involving police misconduct. The officers involved have supporters who don't appreciate my involvement. I've received hundreds of threatening messages. Most are just angry people venting online. But 3 days ago, someone left a dead rat on my doorstep with a note. She handed Marcus a photograph. The rat was large, clearly placed deliberately. The note was simple. Back off or you're next. Have you reported this to the police? Yes. They're investigating, but they don't seem particularly motivated. I think some of them sympathize with the officers I'm prosecuting. Marcus studied the photograph. The threat was direct and physical, a significant escalation from online harassment. What do you need from me? I need someone who can keep me safe while I finish this case. It goes to trial in 3 weeks. After that, the attention should die down. But until then, I'm worried about going to my car alone, walking into court, even being in my own home. I can do that. But I'll need to assess your current security, identify vulnerabilities and make some changes to your routine. Whatever you need. They spent 2 hours going over her schedule, her home security, her daily patterns. Marcus identified multiple weak points. Her apartment had poor lighting and minimal security. She parked in an underground garage with no cameras. She took the same route to work every day at the same time. Starting tomorrow, all of that changes, Marcus said. Varied routes, varied timing. I'll drive you to and from work. We'll upgrade your apartment security, and I'll be with you whenever you're in public until this trial is over. Sarah looked relieved. Thank you. I know this probably seems excessive for some threatening messages, but it's not excessive. Someone who leaves a dead animal on your doorstep is someone who's already crossed a line. Better to take precautions now than regret it later. Over the following weeks, Marcus became Sarah's shadow. He learned her habits, anticipated her needs, and maintained constant vigilance without being intrusive. Sarah was professional and focused, rarely letting the stress show, but Marcus could see it in the small things. The way she checked over her shoulder, the tension in her jaw when she received new messages, the difficulty she had sleeping. The threats continued. More messages, more warnings. Someone spray-painted her car. A brick was thrown through her office window late one night when no one was there. The police investigation yielded nothing concrete. 2 weeks into the assignment, Marcus was driving Sarah home from court when he noticed a vehicle following them. Dark sedan, 2 occupants maintaining consistent distance through multiple turns. Marcus didn't mention it to Sarah, just adjusted his route, taking unexpected turns, testing whether the tail would persist. It did. Marcus pulled into a busy shopping center and parked near the entrance. The sedan drove past slowly, and Marcus got a clear look at the occupants. 2 men, mid-30s, one with a shaved head and neck tattoos. The passenger was filming them with his phone. "Stay in the car," Marcus said to Sarah. "What's wrong?" "Someone's been following us. Probably just trying to intimidate you, but I need to make sure they know it won't work." Marcus got out and walked directly toward the sedan, which had parked 3 rows away. The men inside saw him coming, and the driver started the engine. But Marcus was faster. He stepped in front of the vehicle, arms at his sides, staring directly at the driver. The sedan didn't move. Marcus walked to the driver's window, which remained closed. He knocked politely. When neither man responded, he pulled out his phone and took clear photographs of their faces, the license plate, and the phone they had been using to film. Then he smiled and waved. The driver gunned the engine and reversed out of the space, tires squealing. They sped out of the parking lot and disappeared down the street. Marcus returned to his car. Sarah was pale. "Did you just confront them?" "I documented them. Big difference. Now we have evidence to give the police, and they know that intimidation won't work. What if they had attacked you? They weren't going to attack me. They were following you to scare you. When I made it clear that I wasn't scared and that I could identify them, they ran. That's how bullies work." Sarah looked at him with new understanding. "You've dealt with people like this before. Different circumstances. Same principle." That evening, Marcus sent the photographs to the police and to Frank. Within hours, one of the men was identified as having prior arrests for assault and harassment. The police brought him in for questioning, and he quickly admitted to being hired by someone connected to the officers Sarah was prosecuting. He gave up his employer in exchange for a reduced charge. The threats stopped immediately after that. When the trial concluded 3 weeks later with convictions for all the officers involved, Sarah invited Marcus to her office to thank him personally. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said. "I don't think I realized how much danger I was actually in until it was over. You were in moderate danger, enough to take seriously, not enough to panic over. We handled it correctly." "You handled it correctly. I just tried not to fall apart." She handed him an envelope. "This is a bonus from my firm. They wanted to show their appreciation for keeping me safe." Marcus opened the envelope and saw a check for $5,000. "This is generous. You earned it. And Marcus, if you ever need legal help for anything, you call me. I owe you." Marcus thanked her and left. On his way home, his phone rang. "Frank, you free tomorrow?" Frank asked. "Depends on what you need. I've got someone who wants to meet you. Former military, having a hard time adjusting to civilian life. I told him about you, about how you made the transition successfully. He asked if you'd be willing to talk to him, maybe offer some guidance." Marcus smiled. "Yeah, I can do that." "Good. His name is Derek Crane." Marcus stopped walking. "What?" "I tracked him down after you asked me for help, got him into a veteran support program, helped him find a counselor. He's been sober for 6 weeks now, working on getting his life back together. When I told him who suggested he get help, he didn't believe me at first, but once he accepted it, he said he needed to thank you in person. You interested?" Marcus stood on the sidewalk, people flowing around him, and thought about the question Derek had sneered at him 6 months ago. "Do you think you're a hero?" He had never wanted to be a hero. He had just wanted to live a quiet life, to move past everything he had been and done, but maybe helping people, protecting them, even the ones who had tried to hurt him, maybe that was its own kind of redemption. "Yeah," Marcus said. "I'm interested." They met at a coffee shop near the waterfront. Derek arrived early, looking better than Marcus had seen him in months. He had gained back some weight, his eyes were clearer, and he carried himself with more dignity. "Marcus," Derek said, standing as Marcus approached. "Thank you for coming." They sat down, and for a long moment neither spoke. Finally, Derek broke the silence. "I owe you an apology for everything. The harassment at the job site, the restaurant, all of it. I was angry and lost, and I took it out on you because you seemed like someone I could push around without consequences." "You were wrong about that." Derek laughed, a genuine sound without bitterness. "Yeah, I definitely was. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that even after you put me down, even after you tried to help me at the restaurant, I still hated you. I blamed you for everything that went wrong in my life. It took hitting rock bottom and getting into treatment before I could see that you were never the problem. I was." Marcus listened without interrupting. "Frank told me you're the one who connected me with the program," Derek continued. "After everything I did to you, you still tried to help me. Why?" Marcus considered the question. "Because I understood what you were going through. The anger, the feeling that you don't fit anywhere anymore, that the person you used to be is gone, and you don't know who to become. I've been there, still am some days. But you figured it out. You found work that uses what you are without destroying you. I'm still figuring it out, every day. But yeah, I found something that helps. And if I can help someone else find their way, even someone who made my life difficult, then that's worth doing." Derek shook his head slowly. "I don't deserve that kind of grace." "Maybe not. But that's not really the point, is it? We all need help sometimes. All of us are just trying to survive and find meaning in whatever comes next. Some people get lucky and figure it out on their own. Others need someone to extend a hand." They talked for another hour. Derek told him about the program, about confronting the anger and pain he had been carrying since his own military service years ago, about learning to process trauma instead of burying it under aggression and alcohol, about the slow, difficult work of rebuilding relationships and self-respect. Marcus shared his own struggles with the transition, the jobs he had lost, the isolation he had felt. For the first time, he talked openly about the weight of his past, the things he had done that still haunted him, the question of whether redemption was even possible for someone like him. "Do you think it is?" Derek asked. "Redemption. I think we have to try. Even if we never fully get there, the trying matters." When they finally stood to leave, Derek extended his hand. Marcus shook it. "If you ever need anything," Derek said, "and I mean anything, you call me. I know I can't repay what you did, but I want to try. Just stay sober and keep moving forward. That's payment enough." Marcus walked back to his apartment as the sun set over the Delaware River. The city was alive with evening activity, people heading home from work, going out to dinner, living their ordinary lives. He was one of them now, no longer invisible but no longer defined solely by what he had been. His phone buzzed. A text from Frank. "Got 3 new clients who want to meet with you next week. Business is good. You're building something here, Marcus." Marcus smiled and typed back, "Thanks for everything, Frank. For giving me a chance. You earned it. See you Monday." Marcus looked up at his apartment building. It wasn't much, but it was home. He had furniture now, personal items, photographs on the walls, small signs of a life being built rather than just survived. He thought about Derek's question from months ago, the sneer that had started this entire chain of events. "Do you think you're a hero?" "No," Marcus thought. "I'm not a hero. Heroes don't carry the kind of past I carry. Heroes don't spend years learning to hurt people efficiently and without remorse. But maybe he was something else, something more complicated and more human. Someone who had done terrible things in service of necessary goals, who carried the weight of those actions every day, and who was trying to use the skills he had gained to protect people rather than harm them. Someone who was still figuring out who he wanted to be, but who was finally moving in the right direction. That wasn't heroism, but it was enough. Marcus climbed the stairs to his apartment, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. Tomorrow he would meet new clients, protect new people, continue building this life he was creating one day at a time. Tonight, he would rest. For the first time since leaving the service, Marcus Webb fell asleep without nightmares. He woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through his windows. The city was already awake, traffic humming on the streets below. Marcus made coffee, dressed in his work clothes, and checked his schedule. 2 client meetings, 1 security assessment, and dinner with Frank to discuss expanding the company's operations. A normal day. A good day. As he locked his apartment door and headed down to his car, Marcus passed a neighbor in the hallway, an older woman who always smiled at him. "Good morning, Marcus," she said. "Good morning, Mrs. Chen." "Off to save the day again?" Marcus smiled. "Just going to work." "Well, you be careful out there." "Always am." He drove through the city, windows down, letting the spring air wash over him. At a stoplight, a car full of teenagers pulled up beside him, music blasting. One of them looked over and gave him a friendly nod. Marcus nodded back. Normal interactions, normal moments, the kind of life he had been searching for without realizing it was already here, waiting for him to accept it. At Frank's office, there was a new face in the lobby, a young woman, maybe 25, in professional attire. She looked nervous, fidgeting with her phone. "Are you Marcus Webb?" she asked as he approached the elevator. "I am. I'm Jennifer Hayes. Frank said I'd be shadowing you today, learning how you do what you do." Marcus studied her, former military. He guessed from the way she carried herself, trying to find her place in the civilian world, just like he had been. "You have security experience?" "Army MP, 4 years. Got out 6 months ago. Been struggling to find work that feels meaningful." Marcus smiled and pressed the elevator button. "Then you've come to the right place. Come on, I'll show you what we do." As they rode up to Frank's office, Marcus explained the basics of executive protection, the importance of awareness, the art of being invisible until you can't be. Jennifer listened intently, asking smart questions, showing genuine interest. She reminded him of himself a year ago. Lost, searching, trying to figure out how to use what she had learned in service of something good. The elevator doors opened, and Frank was waiting for them in his office doorway. "Marcus, good to see you. I see you've met Jennifer." "Just now. She seems sharp." "She is. I think you two will work well together. In fact, I've got an assignment that requires a 2-person team. Interested?" Marcus looked at Jennifer, who straightened her posture, ready to prove herself. "Yeah," Marcus said. "I'm interested." And just like that, his life expanded again. Not just surviving anymore, not just protecting people, but now helping others find their way, just as Frank had helped him. The cycle continuing, redemption passed forward like a torch in the darkness. Maybe he would never be a hero in the traditional sense, but he was becoming something better, something real, someone who had been broken and had learned how to rebuild. Someone who carried scars but refused to let them define his entire existence. Someone who took the worst parts of his past and transformed them into tools for protecting others. As Marcus briefed Jennifer on their new assignment, as Frank outlined the details of the protection contract, as the spring sunlight poured through the office windows and illuminated the city spread out below them, Marcus felt something he had not felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of conflict. Not the erasure of his past, but the acceptance of who he had been, who he was, and who he was becoming. Derek had asked if he thought he was a hero. The answer was no. But he was Marcus Webb, former soldier, former ghost, current protector of people who needed protecting, teacher to those still finding their way, builder of a life that meant something beyond violence. And for the first time since leaving that last mission in Kandahar, since walking away from everything he had known, since trying and failing to disappear into normalcy, Marcus Webb was exactly where he needed to be. The bully had sneered and asked his question, and Marcus had answered it. Not with words, but with every choice he made after that moment, with every person he protected, with every hand he extended to someone drowning, with every day he chose to move forward instead of backward. "Do you think you're a hero?" "No, but I think I'm finally becoming the person I want to be." And that was enough.